Hi guys, and welcome to another potato review combined with talking about flowers of potato plants because that's really important for breeding potatoes. This variety is a good example for a variety which is said to have lots of flowers and should set many berries. And on some plants it was true, and on some plants it wasn't, just because they had different growing conditions. The plants in the pots were started very early and grew through spring and were setting flowers before the heat wave. So they had their berries already started when the heat wave was setting in. The other plants in the ground were started later and had their flowers during the heat wave, which meant underdeveloped flowers which were just discarded very early, and I didn't get any berries from the potatoes in the ground. So I thought that's the perfect opportunity to talk about flower setting ability on different varieties and what can make it a little bit problematic to have flowers on your potatoes. First, different varieties have different flower setting abilities and berry setting abilities. For example, wild varieties or varieties from the Andes many of them are daylight sensitive, which means they don't set flowers before the days get shorter, which might be a little bit late for those of us who have a shorter season. Most European varieties or varieties from the US are daylight neutral, so they don't mind if the days are a bit longer. They will have their flowers after a certain time after planting, so it's just like a timer runs and then they should set their flowers. It's not dependent on day length. So for breeding it's good to pick a variety which is known to have many flowers and try breeding with that. Another thing which can have an influence on the flower setting ability of a variety is potato viruses. There's really a lot of different sicknesses potatoes can have. Some are soil-borne, and even if you don't plant potatoes in the soil for a very long time, the virus will stay in the soil, and as soon as you plant potatoes in it, the tubers will be contaminated with the virus. Some other viruses can come with aphids. So if aphids feeding on a sick potato plant, they will transport the sickness to the next plant. And since most people grow their potatoes from seed tubers, and seed tubers are the storage organ of the plant, there is the possibility to import the sickness with the seed tuber. That's where certified seed tubers come into the game. Certified seed tubers are a good source. If you can buy them, I would recommend doing that. However, I have planted many shop-bought potatoes and have traded tubers with other gardening friends and never had a problem with it. Many varieties which are interesting for breeding are just not available as certified seed tubers, so there is a little risk to import some unknown potato sickness. You should be aware of that, but as I said, I never had any problems with that. The plants just flowered fine, and I keep my own seed potatoes year after year, and they still flower fine. So it's probably not a huge problem for some potato breeding project in your garden. What I found has a much bigger impact on the ability of a potato plant to set flowers is the weather and their access to water. Potatoes love cool temperatures and they need lots of water. So the plants I had in these buckets, which were started early, had the possibility to make their flowers while it was still reasonably cool for them. And during the heat wave, when the berries developed, I had moved them to a place behind the house on the north side where they just had some morning sun and some evening sun and were standing in the shade during the hottest time of the day. And I made sure to water these buckets so they did not dry out. And this helps a lot with the plant developing flowers over a long period of time and keeping the berries. The harvest from the ground was not as good because I planted them later. They had their flowers right through the heat wave and discarded most of the flowers immediately, some even before they opened, and there were no berries at all on these plants, and which is kind of natural if you think about it. The potato patch can't be moved to the shade when it's hot, and my sand soil is hard to keep moisture in it. I couldn't keep up with watering while it was so hot, so that's why the potatoes from the ground didn't have any flowers to speak of and didn't set any berries because of that, even though it was the same variety which has good berry setting abilities. If you're having trouble with hot weather during the summer, I would recommend to plant your potatoes very, very early as possible, so they can set their flowers early too, and maybe even plant them in big buckets so you have the chance to move them to a place where they can get some shade during the hot time of the year. Another thing which could have an impact on flower setting is the size of the tubers, like choosing microtubers or peelings. In the early stage of growth, the potato plant is fed by the tuber, and a big tuber helps it to get started and grow strong very early. So the smaller the start tuber is, or the peeling is, the less energy it gets from it, and it takes some time to develop the roots. However, I have many TPS grown plants which grow from a tiny bit of seed, which are still flowering fine and set berries in their first year. So I don't think it has a huge impact on the flowering ability of the plant. But I think giving the potato plant a good start by using a decent sized seed potato is helping it a little bit. In case you're worried about the crop you're getting when the plant is developing berries at the same time, many people pick off the flowers and say, I won't get a good crop if it's making flowers and setting berries, and that energy is missing. I don't think that's the case. I don't think that the crop is reduced by having berries. These plants from the 2 pots, you see how many berries they had, and I still got a good harvest from the 2 pots. So I don't think you need to worry about that. If the plant is healthy and not stressed, it shouldn't have any problems to produce some berries with seeds. If the plant is stressed, like the ones in the ground where I got the tiny harvest from, they will just discard the berries and the flowers because they don't feel they have the energy to produce them. So the plant pretty much decides on its own if it is able to make berries without risking the seed or risking the tubers. So that's pretty much everything I know about flowers and seeds. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching.